Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of NFC Beast. This is the only show that tackles the topics that matter most to your fan base in the NFC East. And joining me today, our esteemed panel in New York. Lou Albanese is in the building. In Dallas, Mike Ducey is here, and Breland Moore representing Philadelphia. Today we will talk Giants, we will talk Eagles, we will talk Commanders, and the Dallas Cowboys. But first, we are going to begin in Philadelphia as the Eagles finally lost their first game last weekend by a final score of 21-17. That included giving up 18 unanswered in the fourth quarter. Breland, we've all been waiting to have this conversation with you. Philly lost. What, if anything, concerns you about the Birds?
Yeah, so number one, I think we talked about this, and when I was doing my prediction, I said I wouldn't be surprised if they lost this game. Keep in mind the starters have not lost a game since that Week 4 meeting last year, right? So, I mean, it's been an incredible run for Jalen Hurts and company, but it had to come to an end soon. And I think this is a really great point for them to have lost a game, actually. The offense is concerning. It's very clunky. They don't feel right. They have not gotten that groove yet, and I think maybe a loss is a good thing. I don't know if you guys saw this, but Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts, they all had a meeting this week to just really go over some things. And, it was, of course, very hush-hush. But from what I was able to find out, it was productive on all fronts. And maybe, they just needed to take some time after a loss and feel the way that losing feels. And that way they can get back on track. Short week. Flush it and move on.
And Mike, to Breland's point, we actually did hear from Devontae Smith, who said that offense just not quite on the same page throughout the entirety of this last week's loss. What concerns you?
Number one, Breland talks about a loss maybe being a good thing. That's a sign that you've done too much winning lately, right? When you can afford to lose a game and feel okay about it. But I understand her point. I think the most concerning thing, as Breland said, is this offense and the lack of productivity, the lack of creativity, the lack of punch. And oh, by the way, the guy that we all assumed was pretty much the best player in the NFL, and Saquon Barkley, only getting it handed to him 6 times last week. That's puzzling. I think they'll be fine. I think Denver's getting better and better as this season goes along. So it's not going to be considered a horrible loss when you look back on it. So am I surprised that they lost the game? Not necessarily. I'm a little bit surprised by the way they lost the game, losing that kind of lead, which hardly ever happens to that team.
Luke, kind of to what it is that Mike's speaking about there with the lack of usage of a Saquon Barkley. You saw Jalen Hurts have arguably his best game, at least from a passing numbers perspective. Is this just not the way that the Eagles win games? Do they need to just pound the ball down the defense's throat?
Well, there's no pounding this year because Saquon's having all sorts of problems bouncing back from last year's historic season. As for losses being productive, I follow the Giants. No loss is ever productive. Okay, let's get that straight. But I will say this. They've been teetering on a few losses along the way. So this is something that was coming, and it might be a good thing for them.
Hey, Breland, is there something amiss with Saquon Barkley? Is it, from what you're reporting, is he healthy, or is this just the schematics?
You know what? I think it's just finding their groove again, right? We have never seen, actually, the level of production that Saquon Barkley achieved in back-to-back years from any running back in the history of the NFL. We knew that this was going to not be as productive of a year. That being said, notice it's not just Saquon Barkley that's struggling. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts, all of their numbers are just not where we need them to be or where they should be at this point. And it's just been a really clunky process. Maybe it's the new offensive coordinator, Kevin Patullo, but I don't think it's a health issue. I will say, though, that the offensive line, Landon Dickerson, once again having some issues here. He had surgery during training camp, and here he is out once again for this Giants game. So Lane Johnson's been in and out of the lineup. That absolutely can contribute to the lack of production that we're seeing from Saquon Barkley. So it's a hodgepodge of issues, but I think in reality the bigger picture is that Kevin Patullo needs to find his groove.
All right, well, one thing's for certain, and that is that for once, the first time this season, all three other fan bases had a chance to rejoice because the Philadelphia Eagles lost. We are haters indeed. And nothing makes the people here in Washington happier than a Commanders victory than one of those Eagles defeats. But the Commanders were able to have an impressive 27-10 comeback victory on the road in Los Angeles last week, led, of course, by JD5, Jayden Daniels, over 230 in the air, another 40-some-odd yards on the ground as well. So, Mike, I'm coming to you because I know how much you love you some Jayden Daniels. Is JD5 the most impactful player in the NFC East?
You could argue that right now, that's for sure. And I think in Dallas, we would probably argue that Dak Prescott is the most impactful player in the division by that much right now because he's playing so well. But I'm going to throw this at you. Maybe Micah Parsons is the most impactful player in this division by virtue of the fact that he's not here anymore. Because I think if Micah is on the Cowboys, they beat the Eagles in that opening week because he would have figured out a way to contain Jalen Hurts a few times when Hurts escaped the pocket. I think if Micah Parsons is not on the Packers and instead still on the Cowboys, they beat Green Bay because Micah is not in a Packers uniform and able to stop Dak shy of the goal line late in that game, a touchdown that may well have won the game for the Cowboys. So maybe that's the difference in a couple of games for Dallas, and they're 4-1 right now rather than 2-2-1. Is that a little bit too cute of an answer? Maybe, because I know your quarterback's having a great start. So is the Cowboys quarterback. I think you could argue that either of those guys is the most impactful in the division right now.
Yeah, but I think that that's extraordinarily on point there, Mike, because to that point, without a Micah Parsons in that Green Bay game, Jayden Daniels likely doesn't get injured as well. But the reason why we present this question here is that as well as Marcus Mariota played, not only the offense but the defense for the Commanders appeared to be better in last week's victory. You saw Jayden be able to throw the ball deep to a Luke McCaffrey, and he used his legs when he needed to, but the offense just seemed to be more in sequence when Jayden Daniels is out there playing the game. Lou, what say you?
I agree. Jayden Daniels is the most impactful. Let's be honest. I saw the Giants. They don't have an impactful player now that Neighbors is gone. As good as Dak is, they can't win. They can't win, so what's the difference? Whether Parsons is there, now he's not there. And the Eagles have a lot of different guys. Jayden Daniels is the difference between winning and losing in Washington, and without him, they lose.
Yeah. Hey, Breland, you know a lot about a quarterback being the difference. Jayden Daniels.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you. And to Lou's point, that was basically exactly what I was going to say. The Eagles, of course, have a lot of talent, but that's the thing. They have a lot of talent, so much so that they can kind of share the wealth here a little bit, but Jayden Daniels really is the difference here between a win and a loss. And yes, Marcus Mariota, we want to hat tip him. He's a very nice man and very serviceable as a quarterback, but he's just not a franchise guy the way Jayden Daniels does. And I think, to your point, Chad, you can see all three phases of the football are elevated when Jayden Daniels is there.
Yeah, its Commanders roster probably still a year away as it pertains to its entire roster. But when you got number 5 back there, you got a chance each and every week. All right, moving on to New York, in which they've got a number 5 as well, Lou. However, the New York Giants blew a 14-6 lead last week down in New Orleans. That included 5 consecutive turnovers, 2 of which were interceptions on behalf of a Jackson Dart. So my question for you, he wins his first start, doesn't play very well in his second. Arrow up or arrow down on Jackson Dart?
How about flatline right now? How about flatline? All right, he's not as good as he was, and he's not as bad as he looked. So he's kind of in between. But if you're the Giants, he looked really good those first couple of drives. He drove them down, scored a couple of touchdowns. He loves Theo Johnson. After they scored touchdowns, they party in fancy restaurants. So they're good. But it's like a learning process, and those turnovers might be the best thing that ever happens, because I was thinking we were getting a little too cocky with the social media, him and Scatterboo. Maybe it's time to tone it down and realize the NFL's tough. Tone it down. NFL's not a playground for you guys to party in, and learn your craft. I think they'll be better off for it.
Breland, what I did like is that after the game, with no ifs, ands, and buts, he said, this is on me. I got to play better.
Yeah, I think he's a talented young man, right? I was a little, no, it's not a joke. That's sincere. However, I think, number one, I'm not going to lie to you. When it first happened and when the decision was first made to throw him in there, I thought he was extremely underprepared, and was the first win maybe a little bit of a rookie luck type of thing, potentially. I'm not taking anything away from him, but I think maybe we're starting to see him come back down to earth. I expected this to be a struggle for him. He is not just going to be able to be plunked in the NFL and succeed, especially when he was not supposed to be plunked in the NFL this early. And so I think we're seeing the result of that decision making. So I'm not necessarily down on him. Flatline is not the best word either, but I'm medium. I'm waiting to see. The jury's out.
Yeah, I'm kind of in line with each of you there. I believe that Jackson Dart does have that moxie. He does have that bravado to lead and galvanize not only a fan base, but potentially a team as well. But Lou, to your point, to have all of that after just one victory, maybe it is a time to kind of come down just a little bit to be able to earn it instead of have it given to you, Mike.
You know, I'll defer to Lou just kind of this way after a performance like that. But you got to look bigger picture if you're the Giants right now, and I know that frustrates the fan base to have to do this, but they have to figure out what they have in this kid, and he's got to learn how to take care of the football. He's not the first young quarterback who struggled with turnovers. He won't be the last. So maybe slightly down after a performance like that, but on balance, I think it's just far too early to tell which way the arrow is pointing with him.
Sure. Well, one quarterback in which we can all agree that the arrow is pointing up on is one Dak Prescott. Now, the Cowboys may just be 2-2-1, but Mike, you alluded to this earlier. Dak Prescott is out there balling, leading the Cowboys to a 37-22 victory over the Jets this past weekend. Also throwing for another 4 touchdowns to just 0 interceptions. This Dallas team appears to have some potential to them. Did we bury the Cowboys too early, Mike?
Maybe. I think the Cowboys are better in some areas than I thought they would be. They're running the ball better than I ever thought they would with Javonte Williams coming in. That's looking like a really smart signing by Jerry Jones. I know we're not allowed to say that, but I think he may have hit on one there. And the Pickens signing, which we talked a lot about coming into this season, has been beneficial because CeeDee Lamb's been out and Pickens has been a big play receiver for them. And Dak, and I know we're going to talk more about him later. We've seen Dak like this before in the regular season, frankly, but until the postseason success comes, Dak Prescott's not going to be what he wants to be as a quarterback, or certainly what this fan base wants him to be. The defense was slightly better last week, slightly better. They had 5 sacks going into that Jets game all year, and then they had 5 in that game alone. So they got pressure on the quarterback, but you have to consider the quarterback against whom they were playing and the team in general against whom they were playing. So this defense still has a lot of work to do. But the Cowboys, if they're going to make some hay here, they need to take advantage of games like this one at Carolina. Their schedule is a bit soft for a while here, or appears to be anyway, with the Cardinals and the Raiders, teams like that on the schedule. Then it gets tougher 4 or 5 games down the road. I think they could really rue the day that they lost to the Bears. That was a bad loss when you look back on that, and they can't afford to have any more days like that.
Lou.
Okay. First of all, I look at the Cowboys like a college team, okay? All right, that's a victory. Their 2 wins are against Division II teams, the Giants and Jets. So right then and there, I can't give them any credit whatsoever. So until I see them, especially the Jets. I mean, that was ridiculous on Sunday, watching that. I mean, until I see them beat a Division I football team, like same problem that Bill Belichick's going through in North Carolina. Until he beats a Division I team, he's a disaster. So until I see them win a Division I game, I'm not going to give Cowboys any credit.
I got you. Look, I believe that it all comes down to expectations, right? Like, I had this Cowboys team hovering right around 500, probably a 3rd-place finish in the NFC East coming into the season. So this kind of what I expected out of the team all around. Dak Prescott and this offense can put up points, meaning that they're going to beat the teams that Lou is talking about them beating, and meaning that since the defense can't stop a cold from being caught in February, they're likely going to give up points all year long. I think the Cowboys are right where I expected them to be. Breland, what do you say?
Well, you already know that I'm a hater.
There we go.
But no, I agree. I agree with both Mike and Lou. That was my point. I mean, I think we're getting a little too happy on the fact that they beat the Jets. The Jets are probably the worst team in football. So I'm not really putting too much stock in that. He should be putting up fantastic numbers against as Lou's calling it a Division II team. That being said, I think Dak Prescott is a great regular season quarterback. I know that I have said that before multiple times on the show. I'm going to say it again until he proves himself a little bit further down the line of the season. The jury's out. But by the way, guys, speaking of MVP candidates, do you know who has the best QBR rating in the league right now through 5 weeks? It's your boy, Lou, Danny Dimes.
I know. Danny Dimes, the man. He's the man.
Insult to injury for Giants fans watching NFC Beast right now. All right. Coming up, we're going to talk more about that Giants quarterback situation as well as a little bit more around the NFC East. Keep it right here. It's NFC Beast. Here on NFC Beast, we ask the tough question. So, Lou, I'm coming to you on this one, speaking about one Brian Daboll. We heard Breland bring up a Daniel Jones, the quarterback who couldn't succeed under this regime, doing big things out there in Indianapolis here now. We've also heard rumors from the locker room that maybe there are people on this Giants team that would have rather this team go to Jameis Winston before handing over the keys to a Jackson Dart. Is there a chance that Brian Daboll is on the verge of losing this New York locker room?
Lose a locker room because, what has he done over the years here? What has he really done? He didn't develop anything with Daniel Jones. Like I said last week, that hug he gave to Jackson Dart was he never did any type of love towards Jones. And now look what Jones has done and so quickly up in Indianapolis. And he's supposed to be Daboll's supposed to be a quarterback guru. And you know what? I think it's the right move to go to Dart at this point because the Giants season's over. Let the kid learn. Let the kid develop. Let the kid lose. Let the kid show he has talent. I don't think he's the type of kid who's going to lose his confidence. And as for Winston, we've seen Winston. I don't even know why they signed him. One for you, one for me. One for you, one for me. Come on. Winston, if he was any good, wouldn't the Bengals look to try to trade for him? And Russell Wilson, was he any good? With the Bengals? They went for Joe Flacco. That's all you need to know.
Yeah. Mike, I think that's a great point that Lou makes, but what about the other 52 in the locker room? What about that total roster of 70, the men who say, I don't want to play for 2, 3, 4 years from now. I need to get wins right now to keep my career going?
Yeah, I'm sure that Winston's going to have a group of veterans in there who are, wanting to see him, under center. But you talk about losing the locker room. The best way to lose a locker room is to lose games and to lose games consistently. And that's one thing Daboll has done really well through the years. It stuns me that he's still the coach there, to be honest. And there are a few things less interesting to me right now than who's going to play quarterback for the New York Football Giants. But if I'm forced to talk about it, I guess maybe he's going to lose the locker room. But he's going to lose the locker room just because he's going to continue to lose football games. And any player with any sort of self-respect is going to get tired of that in a hurry.
Breland, we touched on this last week, but it was after a Jackson Dart victory. Now looking at his performance from last week, did you like going to the rookie this early, or would you have rather go to another security plan in Jameis Winston?
I originally expressed some hesitancy about going to the rookie, and I explained why, and we talked about it earlier in the show. But that being said, that it's done now. So now you can't go back on it because once you start your rookie, you cannot revert and bench him and bring in Jameis Winston. You cannot do that. You have to stick with him. If that is your franchise guy, if that's your future guy, you now have to ride this out. You cannot have him become less confident or, feel as though that the organization doesn't have confidence in him or his performance or his growth. You cannot be messing around with that now. So now you're stuck in it. But I agree. I think Daboll, he was a phenomenal offensive coordinator in Buffalo, but this job seems the boots might be a little too big for him. And he's going to lose the locker room regardless, I think, just based off of just the fact that they're losing games. But if guys are upset that they're not winning games, respectfully, why did you sign with the Giants?
Ooh, boy.
What are we doing?
Good.
You knew that.
Goodness gracious, we are cooking this week on the Beast. All right, Mike, I want to come back because we were talking about Dak Prescott. We were talking about these Cowboys a moment ago, and to a man almost, we called Dak a player of the regular season, not getting it done in the post. But right now, today, 5 weeks in, is it fair to have him at the front of the MVP conversation?
I think he has to be in the discussion. I think Baker Mayfield would be in the discussion as well. I mean, it's amazing how similar the careers of Tony Romo and Dak Prescott are. Right down to the number right down to the win-loss percentage, right down to the lack of success in the postseason. And it's overstating it by saying none of this matters unless Dak performs in the postseason because, the MVP is a regular season award. So it's possible he wins that and then is terrible in the postseason again. But I think right now, by virtue of the way he has played, he's at or near the top of every statistical category for quarterbacks. That matter in that regard. He would be considered an MVP front runner. He was second in the MVP voting 2 seasons ago. Got hurt last year, obviously missed about half the season. He's playing really well. But again, it is the regular season. Expectations are always high here, but I would argue that the level of pressure is much lower right now for this football team than it's been at times in the past because those expectations weren't quite as high as they sometimes are coming into the year.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to speak up for Dak. Right now, if I had a vote, Dak gets my vote for regular season MVP. Look at the numbers that he's putting up, and he's putting those up despite losing his number 1 wide receiver. Lou, speak to me about Dak.
Are you guys crazy? First of all, I've always said this. Stats are for losers. And that perfectly says it. Dak has the stats, and he's losing. We mentioned a guy who's ahead of him already in this thing. Daniel Jones. What he's done in Indianapolis, they're 4-1. Why not give him in the conversation? I don't care about his numbers. He's leading a team that has been bad all around. All right, there are other players out there who are winning. Baker Mayfield especially has had a great year. You can't give it to a guy who's on a losing team. I don't care how many throws he throws down the field. No, he's not the MVP.
They're a 500 team, and he lost his number 1 receiver. Breland, help me out here.
I'm going to side with Lou. You already knew that, though. Come on. You knew I was going to side with Lou on this. Also, it's too early, in my opinion, to start talking about MVP. Give me at least, halfway through the schedule, and then we'll talk about this. But I'm not really worried about a really convincing win over the New York Jets and et cetera, et cetera. I'm all set. Beat a real team.
All right. No one's set on the Dak Prescott train except for us here in Washington, D.C. Go Surprise. Coming up, we're going to pick our winners for the week. Stay here. It's NFC Beast. It's time to pick our games, and we'll begin with the one that will likely get the least amount of national pub this week, and that is Cowboys versus Panthers. Mike, who wins and why?
I think the Cowboys win the game. Now, take this with a grain of salt because I thought I picked the Jets to beat Dallas last week. I have full disclosure there. I just didn't trust this Cowboys team to go on the road with that defense. I thought any game was in play. I underestimated how horrible the Jets are. But I think the way the Dallas offense is cooking right now, maybe the defense figured a few things out and can get to the Carolina quarterback a little bit this week as well. So I think Dallas wins it.
All right. No disrespect to the Panthers, but I think that's enough conversation about that game. Washington Commanders playing host to the Chicago Bears. Monday Night Football. It's the reunion of the Hail Mary. Lou, who wins this game and why?
I like Washington, but I tell you, the Bears, don't sleep on Caleb Williams. He looked really good against the Cowboys. But right now, and I like the passing game they have going, but I'm going to go with the Commanders. I think they're a better team.
Yeah, and this is going to be a big game for the Washington Commanders. Heard from head coach Dan Quinn today. He said to completely forget about that Hail Mary. That was last year's story. This is this year. I think the Commanders win again, despite the fact that Caleb Williams, the hometown young man, is playing a lot better. Breland, get in there.
I'm going to go Commanders as well. The Bears are atrocious against the run, and when you have a mobile quarterback like Jayden Daniels. And, I mean, Bill Krosky-Merritt has been doing incredibly well and stepping up into that role when his number was called. I think this might be a really solid win for the Commanders. I don't think it's going to be close.
Yeah, I happen to agree with that. And now for our Thursday night game. Some call it a huge matchup in the NFC East. Others say it's just another Eagles win. Eagles versus the Giants. Mike, who you got?
If I read this correctly, the Giants have not been favored in a regular season game against Philadelphia since 2016, which is kind of a phenomenal stat when you think about it. And obviously there's good reason for that continuing this week. I ain't going to pick this upset. Give me the Eagles.
Oh, one for the Birds. Lou, give your Giants fans some hope.
You know, they always say having team meetings. You always have the team meeting when you know your ace is going to be going on the bound. Well, you know, they weren't stupid, those guys. They understood. They had a little meeting, got it out there because they're playing the Giants. Saquon's going home. So, you know, they didn't have this team meeting. They knew they were going to like Denver, who can play really well. They know exactly what they're doing. This game is not even going to be close. The Eagles are going to smoke them. And if they don't, they got problems.
Breland, that Giants defense, not so much last week, but that Giants defense can come to play from time to time. Can they slow down this Eagles offense and open it up for Jackson Dart?
You know what my answer is going to be. And Jackson Dart, that poor child, is going to be eaten alive by this Eagles defense.
So no Jackson Dart. So is that saying that you're saying Eagles win here?
Absolutely. Very convincingly.
Got you. All right. Breland goes with the Eagles. Everybody's on the Birds. I would love to make a convincing argument for the Giants, only I don't have one. I don't have one to make. Breland, the Saquon Barkley documentary, that's coming out ahead of kickoff?
I believe so, yeah. So that should be super interesting to watch. I'm really excited to see. And, of course, this is always – he won't admit it, but you know this is always a grudge match for him.
Lou, what's your expectation of Saquon versus the Giants?
Oh, I think this is the game. This is his breakout game. This is his breakout game. I know he says he's all aches and pains, aches and pains. They'll all go away once he takes the field in MetLife. His documentary's coming out. I think he's actually held back because he says, you know what, I'm not going to stop playing the season. I know my guys can win. Let me do my debut and show how great I am again on MetLife Stadium. So, yeah, he's going to have a monster game.
Wouldn't surprise me at all. I do believe the Giants are going to put up a fight. That's about all that we can say. But on behalf of all of our guests, thank you. It's NFC Beast.